The Protection Warrior has been quite the sleeper tank this season. This class at face value is pretty straightforward. Shield Slam and Thunderclap on cooldown, and spend your rage on Shield Block, Ignore Pain, and Revenge. While the Warrior rotation has been fairly straightforward, there still remains the insane skill cap of optimizing Spell Reflect to really push your damage into the realm of absolutely nutty. I've been playing my Prot Warrior a lot more recently, and I can't even begin to describe the amount of fun that I've been having with the class, and specifically, Spell Reflecting this season. In this video, I want to quickly talk about how to perfect your Spell Reflect in Neltharion's Lair. Specifically, the boss encounters, to really push your damage to be competitive with those DPS and be the hero that your group needs, and more importantly, you deserve in your life. We're going to jump right into this one. I really want to focus on Spell Reflects on bosses for two reasons. First, I have to assume that the majority of players are pugging their keys, and in terms of pugging, not many players track or pay attention to the tank's Spell Reflect cooldown, and in a broader sense, the target of their target. Second, boss Spell Reflects generally have way more of an impact in the course of the run than trash Spell Reflects. I mean, both are important, but you're going to get a lot larger hits from boss Spell Reflects. Regarding bosses, there isn't much to say about Rockmora, so we're going to jump straight into Ularogg the Crag Shaper. What's awesome about this boss is the main tank buster, Sunder, is actually magical damage. Not only that, but it's also coded as reflectable, meaning that you are turning the boss's hardest hitting ability into your hardest ability. A little Uno reverse card, if you will. In order to maximize Spell Reflex, we really need to make sure that we're putting the ability on cooldown frequently, and early enough to prevent missed Sundered casts. Making sure that you're hitting the first Spell Reflect is vital to making sure that you're able to hit the rest of the Spell Reflex. Upon pulling the boss, you're going to want to put yourself in a position where you can negate the knockback with a charge to gain rage, and as soon as the boss lands, you want to make sure you're hitting Spell Reflect. I know this seems early, but the boss can actually get into some really strange spell queuing. Sunder is also an extremely fast cast. It's very difficult for the human brain to actually react to this, so paying attention to spell timers will be your best friend here. Shortly after you charge and taunt, he will open on the tank with Sunder. Your Spell Reflect will have roughly 1 to 2 seconds remaining, but this is perfect because the next Sunder is going to happen in about 17 seconds. For you Protection Warrior savants out there, you are well aware that Spell Reflect is a 20-second cooldown. Therefore, we want to be focusing on using it. Because of spell queuing, the boss is going to use Shattering Hands, followed by Bellowing Idol. Immediately after the Bellowing Idol cast, he will recast Sunder. So, essentially, you want to be Spell Reflecting as soon as it comes up. Ularogg will then proceed to cast Shattering Hands again, followed by another Sunder. Now, sadly, this is the one that we cannot Spell Reflect since it's only about 12 seconds after the previous one, so it won't be available. His last cast of Sunder in this phase is going to be about 10 seconds afterwards, putting you in a perfect position to land the third and final Spell Reflect for this phase. Essentially, you want to hit this as soon as it comes up. You'll repeat this pattern for each phase, resulting in massive, and I mean absolutely massive DPS gain. Moving on to Naraxas, this boss has a similar mechanic that can be spell reflected. The ability is actually the AoE dot, called Toxic Wretch. There are 3 of these casts per phase. While it is possible to always get 2 of them, you can change which ones you get if you're paying attention. To keep it simple though, I highly recommend just getting the first and third, and you're going to want to use a defensive on the second if needed. You can simply press Spell Reflect during the cast, and should apply the dot as soon as it's registered. Now, it is possible for Arms and Fury Warriors to do this as well, since it isn't a directly targeted spell at the tank. Last but not least, let's move on to the final boss, Dargrul. Similar to Ularogg, the main tank buster mechanic for this fight is also spell reflectable, and will take a bit more effort to spell reflect all 3 within the first phase. After the first phase though, the Molten Crash is a little bit more spread out and sporadic due to the spell queuing, but let's go over it. For this fight, you're going to start this any way you would on another tank. The boss will start by spawning a Crystal Spike, followed by a Charskin ad spawn. Immediately following this, the boss is going to cast a Landslide, and this is when you're going to want to actually cast Spell Reflect. Immediately charge back in, and Molten Crash should hit when there's roughly 1 second remaining of the Spell Reflect buff. I know this seems sketchy, but this is actually perfect because you're going to need to Spell Reflect basically on cooldown for the rest of the phase. Next time you're knocked away by Landslide, Spell Reflect should come up while you're being knocked away or making your way back to the boss. And then finally, the very last Spell Reflect can be used as soon as it comes up. Now, it is an extremely tight window, as you can tell, but it is possible to land the third and final Spell Reflect before phasing. Once you make it through the Lava Wave intermission, you can typically shift your Spell Reflect to a more reactionary form of mitigation, since Molten Crashes don't necessarily always follow each and every Landslide. Anyways, that wraps it up. I hope this video was helpful. I haven't covered Prot Warrior in a while, but I have thoroughly been enjoying it. If you did like this video, leave a like and let me know if there's another dungeon you'd like me to cover in terms of Spell Reflect. Anyways, massive shout out to my Patreon supporters. You guys are just so fucking cool and pretty much my favorite people on the planet. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.